Good morning, everybody. Today we're going to be talking about light rendering. The image that I currently have pulled up is the sample lighting rendering that is on Moodle. It is just a sample that I did from when I took a similar class. The goal of your assignment is to take not necessarily a blank rendering, but a scenic rendering where there isn't, any really real lighting effects shown, or um, there may be some lighting effects, but I want you to change it. But you're going to be taking this rendering and you're going to be adding your own lighting in. Okay, this was the original file that I worked with. It's from a course line and was designed by Cherry P. Duvall. And what I did was I added basically some colored angle light. I removed all of the figures and only kept a couple. And I replicated this bead scenery, these beads and these columns. I replicated them down and added a mirror effect on the floor so that it looked like the floor was reflective. Okay. What I want you to do is to take this file, lighting rendering base PDF. This is also on Moodle. Okay, this is the set for part of the set for Mock Marriage, designed by me for Ohio Light Opera. And what you're going to be doing is you're going to add a figure and scale it to appropriate size. We don't want any, Godzilla or Hulk size people in the set. Try and make them as proportionate as possible depending on where you put them. You're going to add a minimum of 4 lighting effects. This does not include pyrotechnics. This does not include practicals, and you need to take light pools into consideration. So if we jump back to sample light rendering, right here I have 5 beams of light. That's 5 lighting effects. Okay, 1 beam of light counts as a lighting effect. Okay. If you want to add something like a gobo someplace, that also counts. I have left the cyc all the way upstage white because if you want to make the cyc a different color, that also counts as a lighting effect. In addition to these lighting effects, any practicals must be given light. For the sake of this, based off what is here in this image, if we zoom in, they look like crystal balls. These orbs that are upstage, those are practicals. These sconces on the arches and on these columns upstage are also practicals. These 2 practicals on this arch, if you add something to them, great. If not, I realized that they are darkened out on accident, so go ahead. You don't have to do those because chances are the scenic designer is going to cut those too anyway. You need to add shadows where necessary and add highlights where necessary. Okay. So what that means is if I have a beam of light shining on my figure or on a piece of furniture, then we are going to see that the shadow of that object. Now, talking about lighting effects, talking about a beam of light, one of the things that I'll always do is create a new layer first. Okay, we'll call this beam 1. Okay. And what I will do is I will use the polygonal lasso select. I will choose a rough area from where I feel I want my light to come from. We'll just want it from up in this corner. And I will start to draw the beam of light. Okay, I want it to come down at this angle. I'm gonna hold down shift to make sure that I have a perfectly straight horizontal line. I'm gonna go that far, and then I'm gonna bring the beam back up. And I'm gonna follow the outline of the portal. Oops, I accidentally deselected. So this is my beam of light. Okay, I'm going to select a color. Let's go ahead and do blue. We'll do this color blue. We'll click OK. I'm going to use the paint bucket tool. I'm going to click in here, and it's going to fill it with blue. Now, obviously, light does not look like that, okay? It doesn't look like just solid color. So what we're gonna do is over here in the layers panel with the layer selected, we're going to decrease the opacity. I'm going to try 20%. We'll see what that looks like. 20% seems like it could be good. I could probably bump that up to 30. Yeah, make it a little bit more intense. There is my light beam. Well, now you gotta think, well, when lighting hits the ground, there's always a pool of light. So this is where you can use ellipse select, okay? And you can create an oval, an ellipse, okay? I'm going to create a new layer and call it pool 1, light pool 1. I hear the word pool and I think of swimming pool. So for me, I'm like, I gotta do light. I gotta do light pool. Okay. With this same color selected, I'm going to use the paint bucket tool again. I'm gonna fill the circle. I'm gonna decrease the opacity down to 30% so it matches. Oh, I accidentally have it at 3%. That's why. I was like, why isn't it showing up? So one of the things we're dealing with now is we have this awkward half circle right here. It just doesn't look normal, right? Well, what we can do, we're gonna Command Z it all the way to where I didn't fill it in. I'm going to hit Command Alt, or for a PC, it's Control Alt, and I'm going to click on the little image in Beam 1. And it's going to remove the beam from my selection, okay? So I can continue, I'm still on light pool 1, I have the paint bucket selected, I'm going to click, it's gonna look like a weird shape, but I'll drop the opacity down to 30%. Oops, I did the exact same thing. Okay. Select, and there we have our pool. Okay, this looks like a more natural lighting effect. Okay, as you can see, if I zoom in, you can see there's a little bit of a point there from our beam. That's not the end of the world. Okay, we still get the sense, you still see what we're going for. Okay, so there's one lighting effect. If we want to throw in a go-go, I've selected this leaf pattern just because it's something simple. I'm going to go ahead and select the magic wand tool. When it comes to selecting, creating a gobo, selecting images to create a gobo, you're going to want to think about where's the light coming from, where's the light shining through. Okay, when I think about this pattern, everything that's white, your brain thinks that's what's going to be lit up. That's what I want to select. That's not how gobos work. You're going to need, with gobos, you need something solid. You need the circle of the gobo, you need the metal to stretch all the way across the circle, and you have punched out sections, okay? So what we're going to do is these leaves are going to be the punched out sections. So using the magic wand tool, I'm going to select everything that's white because it's easy to make that as one selection. I am then going to go to the top of the window, hit select, and inverse. What that does is it selects everything except the white that I had just selected. Now with this image, you have vector stock right here. I have this image right here, this little bit selected right here, and I don't want that. I could have cropped it out before I made my selections, but I can also hit the rectangle select tool, hold down the Alt key, click, and highlight that section, and it'll deselect all of it for me, okay? Then what I'm going to do to make this easy for myself, I'm going to create a new layer, use the paint bucket tool. I'm going to keep this, actually, change this to a bright green because it'll stand out on the next image. I'm going to fill that in. I'm going to hit Command C. And the reason I filled this in is because we're going to be transferring this to our lighting rendering base, and changing it to a bright neon green, at least for me, is going to make it more visible, okay? So we create a new layer. We use the paint bucket tool to fill in our selection. I'm going to hit Edit, Copy. I'm going to go to Light Rendering Base, Edit, Paste, okay? Now I'm going to rename the layer Leaf Gobo, okay? And I want it to be just on the floor. So this is where we're going to use some of our warping tools that we talked about with our bedroom collage, with our scenic renderings, okay? So just to be sure, I'm going to Command, or for PCs, Control, click the image here next to Leaf Gobo. It's going to select everything in that layer. I'm going to go Edit, Transform, Distort, okay? What that's going to allow me to do is drag my gobo in different directions so I can fill the space that I want. We're going to turn off that beam. Ooh. Well, I just did something and found something out new. So I tried turning off the light pool 1 and beam 1 because I didn't want it there anymore while I was working on this. Well, in the middle of a function, in the middle of the distort function, if I go to click on something else, it takes me out of the distort function, out of the transformation. So I'm actually going to go back. You know, I have my pixels selected. I'm going to turn off the beam for now. Go back, edit, transform, distort. I want to line up with my platform. Oop. Did not want to do that. Okay, so if you hit Command Z, it takes you out of the whole function. I rotated it by accident and I didn't want to do that. Remember, like I said in a past video, be very careful. Be sure you're paying attention to the arrows. This is a rotate arrow. This is a scale arrow. I want to definitely make sure I have the scale arrow selected. Okay, I'm going to go about there because this little leaf right here is cut off, and so having it end at the proscenium makes sense. I want this gobo to just cover big old space. I'm gonna zoom out a bit. I'm actually going to take this corner and I'm going to pull it off the stage because I want it to go off. Make things a little more realistic. I'm going to line it up with those portal edges. I think that looks good for a go-go to store. I'm going to hit enter. And there we go. Now, I'm going to deselect everything. I'm going to use the eraser tool. Okay. I'm going to increase the size of the brush just by a little bit. Because what I want to do is there's some things here that I want to erase. Okay. Because they just don't make sense. A lot of these hard cut gobo pieces, and that's okay. I'm gonna erase those. I kind of want this to be more of a circle space. I don't want the gobo on any of this platform. I'm going to zoom in. Now, as you can see, the gobo is on top of my furniture. Okay, I'm going to be erasing a couple things while I'm talking. The gobo is on top of my furniture. I have a couple options here. I can just, erase the gobo that's on top of the furniture. That's not that difficult. Or what I can do is I can keep my gobo and just like outline, copy, and paste the furniture on top of it. Okay, so you'll end up having another layer with this piece of furniture on it, but for what I'm doing, I don't need to do that. That's entirely if you just want to keep the entirety of the gobo. Okay, I'm going to decrease the size of my brush so that I can get in here. I'm just going to quickly erase pieces. We're not going to get super fancy. Now, one of the things to also be aware of is, okay, so I've put this gobo down. Where is the gobo coming from? Where's the light effect coming from? Okay, because right now my gobo is underneath this desk. That doesn't really make sense. Okay, it makes sense if if I have like a low light, if the turn my cursor back on. If the lighting instrument, is low and coming from over here, like from stage left and just shining this way, might make a bit more sense, okay? For the sake of this project, if you were to just leave it like this, I get what you're going for. It's not the end of the world, okay? If you want to go ahead and take part of your gobo and put it on top of the desk to make it more, quote unquote, realistic, that is also entirely up to you. Because with the light rendering, you see right here, you get the look that we're going for. Okay? What I'm going to do is I'm just going to erase everything that's underneath the desk. Or at least everything that seems like it's under the desk and would make sense that it's not there. Okay? That's what that would look like. So now that we have our leaf gobo selected, I can go ahead and I can go in and I can change our colors and opacity if I want. Let's do kind of like the green. I'm going to make it a little more yellow. I'll make it, we'll just keep this intensity up, make it a little darker. Now I can use the paint bucket tool but it's only going to fill each individual leaf because each leaf is already filled. Okay, if you're using a selection tool and the selection is unfilled, you can use the paint bucket tool and it will just fill everything automatically very quickly. I'm going to use the paintbrush tool, increase the brush size very large. Okay, this massive circle. I'm going to click and I'm just going to brush over everything very quickly, and it'll fill all of my leaves very fast. That opacity is a bit much. Let's see what happens when I drop it down to 50. Oops. Okay, there's 50. It's not quite what I want. Let's drop it down to 30. 30 makes a bit more sense. I'm kind of digging. Nope, I liked 30. Okay. I like 30. You get this the leaf pattern on the floor. Okay. Now what we can do to, I guess you could say spice it up a bit. If you want to fuzz it out, like if I'm looking at these leaves and I'm like, the leaves look a little hard. It's a little, not soft enough for me, okay? I can go in and into the blur tool. Okay, I'm going to keep the strength at 50. I'm going to increase the brush to 100 just for now. We're going to test it out. I'm going to zoom in on the leaves. Go back to the blur tool. And I'm just going to blur I'm just going to use the blur tool to soften the edges. You still get the leaf shape, but all the edges are just a hair softer. You don't have to do this. This is just, if this is the look you're going for. Let's see, use the zoom tool, zoom back out. Now you can see the difference between my soft leaves and my hard leaves. And I definitely like the soft leaves. I like that look. So I'm just gonna go ahead and I'm just gonna blur everything. With the blur tool, I could go even softer, okay? We talked about the blur tool before. If you still have your left click still held down for your blur, it's not going to make anything more blurry. You have to release your mouse click and click again and go over everything a second, a third, a fourth time. You can see that everything is starting to blur out even more. Okay? I'm gonna undo that though. Like if I go between the two things in the history, what I just did, you can see how there's a second blur makes everything a little bit blurry, a little bit more soft. Okay. Now, I'm also looking at this and I'm noticing, I don't know how I feel about the green. That green that I selected was, pretty dark. It doesn't really look like a lighting effect. So I'm going to select everything in this layer. I'm going to go before the blur tool in my history palette. I'm going to go back. If you don't want to hit undo a bunch of times, you can just literally go back and select something. Select a moment in your history to go back to. I'm going to change my color to a lighter green. Again, I'm going to use the brush tool. Now, the reason it doesn't look so bright, my opacity is already at 50%. Okay? I'm going to I think I like this color though. I'm going to deselect everything and go to opacity. I'm going to drop it down now, 360. I'm going to drop it down to 30. That feels more like an accurate, it looks more like a lighting effect. Okay, it doesn't, it's not as dark, you know, well, lights, even with, you know, darker colored gels, it still looks, you know, lighter on stage. And this is more of the effect that I want to go for. So if I drop the lighter down to 20% though. Nope, don't like that. And then you can also play with your blending modes, like what would multiply do? Oh, it goes away. Soft light, overlay. Well, it seems like because it's a black floor, it's, you know, normal might be the only thing that I can pick. Okay. I'm gonna turn my light pool and my beam back on. I have a beam of light and a gobo on stage. Now, I'm going to turn all those off because I'm going to show you how to affect the psych upstage. I'm going to create a new layer. We'll call it psych. I'm going to zoom in on the psych. Okay. Ooh, too far. I'm going to use the magic wand tool. What you're going to want to do is if I want to select things on the psych, I can't be on the psych layer. I have to be on the original layer, which they've called bitmap. Okay, because I opened a PDF. Okay. You have to be on that layer to make selections. So I'm going to click this. I'm going to click the psych. You can see that it has the outline, but just for this white area. If I want the other white areas, I have to go into each individual white area and click while holding down the shift key. I'm going to click every little area because I want this to be super accurate. Now, the spaces are relatively small, but if you want to be super accurate, if you want it to look really good, you're going to select every single one of these little white areas because all of this is a part of the psych. You know what? I'm going to increase my tolerance. I'm noticing that it's not selecting as many pixels as I want it to. So at the top of the screen, I'm going to increase my tolerance to 20. Continue holding down Shift. Oops. Shifted everything. Okay, I'm going to keep clicking in these spaces. Same thing works with Photoshop. You hold down Shift and you keep clicking everything. You can also, at the top of your screen, so you have these modes right here with the magic wand tool. And you also get this with some various selection tools. You have replace, unite, subtract, intersect. The first three are going to be the ones that we use the most, okay? Replace is, your standard mode, selection, deselection. If you have unite selected, you don't have to hold down Shift to make more selections. Okay, it will automatically add to your selection. If you have subtract selected, it's going to do the opposite. Instead of adding to your selection, you're going to subtract. So let's go ahead. I'm going to click unite. I'm not holding down Shift, but I'm still clicking, and you see that it's adding to my selection. If I go ahead and I hit subtract, it removes selections. You can see the outlines going away. Okay, I think I have everything selected for my psych. I want to do, let's say I want to do a sunrise, okay? I am going to use the gradient tool, okay? From the drop-down menu at the top, okay? The colors right here, this green and white, it's based off your foreground and your background colors. There are also some preloaded gradients for you to use, okay? If you double-click on one, it should select it. Oh, single click, okay, single click on it. It might be double click with Photoshop, okay? With Photoshop, you have some additional options to adjust your gradient, okay? If you double click on a gradient in Photoshop, it brings up a window where you can actually add more than 2 colors to a gradient. And you can not only adjust those colors, you can adjust their opacity, their saturation. You can adjust where exactly in the gradient they sit, okay? So if you're using Photoshop, it's fun to play with. On the other hand, I'm gonna do, let's see, I'm just gonna do a purple and kind of a pinkish red because it seems like it makes sense for a sunset. What else makes? Nah, I'm gonna go with the purple. I think it might make more sense. I hit OK. No, this is my gradient, okay? The way it should work is I'm gonna go back to my psych layer, so I'm doing it on the psych layer. I'm not doing it on the, I'm not altering the original image at all. With the gradient tool selected, I'm going to click and I'm going to drag. You see this line appear. The line shows which direction the gradient is going. When I release, the gradient appears. Now, I'm basing this off my foreground and background color. Where you click is where your foreground color is going to sit, okay? You have options for gradients. You can use linear, radial, angle, reflected, or diamond, okay? They're all going to look, you know, a little different. Let's see if I did radial. We'll just start up here and we'll go down. Radial is a circle. Diamond, click and drag. It's the shape of a diamond. So go ahead and play with gradients if they seem like they would work. But for me, for a sunset, this feels like what I want. I'm going to deselect it. You see there's a little white border around it. That's unfortunately it's dealing with Photopea and its selection process. When I was using the magic wand tool, I should have increased my tolerance up to probably like 40, and it would have fixed that. So there's my psych. Okay, I've created a sunset with a leaf gobbo. Okay. We'll do one more thing. Now this next part you can do, we're gonna talk about the practicals. You can do them all on one layer, you can do them each on their own layer, that's entirely up to you. Practical, I'm gonna start with these little practical. I'm just gonna zoom in here so we can see this. What I would normally use is the paintbrush tool. I'm going to select the color first. We'll go with, I want it to be a warm light. So I'm gonna drag it down to a little bit orange. I'm going for like an off-white color, but it's a little orangey yellow. And hit OK. My brush is very big. You can see the light circle. So I'm going to decrease the brush size and see what 20 looks like. 20 is a bit small for these practicals, so I might bump it up. We'll just double it and see what 40 looks like. 40 looks about accurate. I'm going to decrease the hardness to 0. And I'm going to change the opacity to 50 just to begin with and see what it looks. Click once, so what does it look like? It lights up a little bit. I'm going to increase the size of my brush because it changed. Not bad. Okay, so it looks like if I do 2 clicks on these ones, it looks like they're lit up. Let's zoom out and see what those look like. Well, they look like they're glowing. That's cute. Okay, we're gonna zoom back in. Let's see, using the brush tool, I'm gonna lower this down, the brush size to 30, because I wanna punch up the middle. I don't wanna increase the radius of the light, but I do wanna make the center brighter. So I just decreased the size of my brush, and I did 2 more clicks in the middle of the practical. Okay, zoom out. It makes it look like it's a little bit more lit up. Now, for those practicals, and that's just one way of doing it. You can also play with the size of your brush, see how far out the light extends, and see what feels more realistic. Okay, I would just want to go for a little bit of a subtle glow with those. I'm gonna go back to the brush tool because I want to work on these orbs now, these light up orbs, these globes. I'm going to jump up to a brush size of 100 with a hardness of 0, and it's still too small. So what if I go to 150? It's okay. I'm gonna go 200. And click and see what that looks like. I like that. I'll go do 200. What's 2 clicks look like? Not a fan of a 200 with 2 clicks. So I'm gonna play with the brush size. I'm gonna go 200, I'm gonna go down to 150. Yeah, okay, that looks good. Go down to 100. So this is the reason why I do this, why I play with the size of the brushes, is because, as you're working with, a light bulb, like the closer you get to the filament, the brighter it's going to get. And so I'm decreasing the size because the light is getting closer to the filament. Okay, it's not going to change anything else. I'm going to zoom out. Oh, and look, it looks like it's glowing. That's exactly what I was going for. Is I wanted it to look and feel like it was glowing. Okay. Go ahead and turn on our beams of light. It looks a little weird, a blue beam with leaves on the ground, and then you have the practicals lit up and a sunset in the background. May not make a lot of sense, but that's how we can do some lighting effects. Okay. One of the things I'm just now noticing, and you should be aware of, my cyc is sitting in front of the blue beam. That's based entirely on layer order, okay? If I want this beam of light to be in front of my cyc, then it needs to be above the cyc in my layer order. See, I just moved it, and it puts it on top, okay? So in your layer order, when something is beneath another layer, it's going to be behind a layer. It's kind of like how it works in Vectorworks, okay? Again, I just want to run through the rubric, okay? Formatting is the same as every other assignment. The image size is going to be a little bit different. I want it to be on 10 by 16. I want the canvas to be 10 by 16. Resolution of 300 ppi. The image fills the entire image and must be saved and submitted as a PDF. You must add a figure and scale to appropriate size. I don't care who the figure is. It could be you, it could be someone from a movie, from a film, it could be someone that you just Googled. That's totally fine. But when I say I want a figure, I want to see a full figure. I don't want to see just a floating head. I want a full figure to scale to appropriate size. If you want to try and make the figure sitting on one of the pieces of furniture, you are more than welcome to. You need to add a minimum of 4 lighting effects that does not include pyrotechnics or practicals, and take pools of light into consideration, okay? I'm also looking at this right now, and my light beam is probably a little bit intense, okay? I'm gonna knock that down to 20. I like that. I think that works. I'd have to play with the pool a little bit, but I think looking at now with everything there, knocking down the opacity of my light beam makes more sense. That's something that you want to pay attention to when you get to the end of your assignment. Look at everything and think, does all of this make sense? Does all of this look appropriate? Any practicals must be given light, okay? It doesn't have to be white. It doesn't have to be super bright. It just has to be, all the practicals have to be lit, okay? The practicals are all of these little sconces and these orbs. If you want to light up these practicals, you're more than welcome to, but if you don't, it will not be counted against you because they have, as you can see, all of these practicals have like a glass effect added to them, and these do not, okay? So those ones, if you want to go ahead and add a light, you're more than welcome to. Add shadows and highlights where necessary. So what that's saying is, like I did over here with the gobo, okay? Essentially this space right here would be a shadow, okay? If this was shining straight down, which is kind of what I was going for, that's what this is look like. If you have a gobo coming from stage left to stage right, then the shadow of the chair and the desk would extend further stage right. So you'd have to adjust for that in your gobo. And you would use the same tools that we did in the bedroom collage / scenic rendering video when we talk about creating shadows for furniture, okay? And your file is saved with the correct format as stated in the syllabus. That's always been a part of everything, so don't forget that. Also, while I have you in this video, we're also going to talk about your final project real quick. The assignment is put on Moodle as well as the rubrics and sample proposals. You must write a proposal for your final project, okay? Your final project is half Photoshop, half Vectorworks. I want you to come up with a project, what you feel is going to test your skills and your abilities both in Photoshop and Vectorworks. Pay attention to the sample proposals because that's what I'm going to be expecting. I'm going to expect you to fully explain your projects and how these projects are going to test your skills, okay? For these projects, I'm not expecting you to do like, a 10-page or a 10-piece, drafting file. I'm not expecting something like that. I'm not expecting, to do 5 Photoshop renderings. It's like, if you can propose to me, 1 drafting plate and 1 rendering, and you explain exactly what you're gonna do and it's solid, then it'll work, okay? According to the syllabus, I was going to talk about that on Wednesday, but I want to do it today as a part of this video. So go ahead and start thinking about your final projects and your final project proposals. The proposals are due next week, Monday, okay? I'm going to be sending out a Zoom meeting invite because this is something that I want us to talk about in person, okay? I know there are some people who may not be able to access Zoom. That's fine. For those of you who can, I do want you to join in if possible because we can talk more about the final projects. You can listen to critiques and feedback on other people's projects that may help you with yours. But this is something, the sooner you begin working on your proposals and submitting them to me, I can begin to look at them, give constructive feedback, and you can start working on your final projects. Okay. Thank you very much. Again, I'll send out a Zoom meeting notice for next week, Monday. The purpose of that Zoom meeting is to talk specifically about final project proposals. Okay? If there are any questions or concerns, please feel free to email me, to reach out to me. I'm more than willing to help. All of you have an absolutely fantastic day.